Let's be honest, the end of the world has a great marketing department. Between the blockbuster movies with the exploding landmarks and the nightly news making you want to dig a bunker under the patio, doom is always trending. I'm Tom, and I spend entirely too much time thinking about how civilization might trip over its own shoelaces. But here is the thing about anxiety. It is usually terrible at math. We lie awake at night worrying about zombie hordes or alien invasions, but we ignore the frayed wiring in the basement or the fact that we haven't checked the tyre pressure in 6 months. Fear loves a spectacle, but survival loves logistics. Today, I want to walk you through the apocalypse, not as a horror story, but as a ranked list. We are going to look at the scenarios that keep us up at night, from the scientifically impossible to the disturbingly probable. We will look at the evidence, ignore the Hollywood plot armour, and try to figure out what is actually worth preparing for. Because if you treat every threat like it is an extinction-level event, you burn out before breakfast. Real preparedness is about allocating your mental bandwidth to the things that might actually happen, rather than the things that just look cool in CGI. So, grab a coffee, find a comfortable chair, and let's sort the nightmares from the nuisances. Before we start ranking these disasters, we need to understand why our brains are so bad at this. Humans are wired to react to sudden, loud, scary things. A tiger in the bushes, or in modern terms, a breaking news alert with a red banner. We are much worse at reacting to slow, creeping problems, like a crumbling supply chain or a changing climate. This is why a fictional zombie outbreak feels more urgent than the very real possibility of a regional power outage. One has teeth, the other just means your freezer melts. But in my experience, the freezer melting is the scenario that actually hurts you. We are going to move from the bottom of the list, the stuff of fiction, up to the heavy hitters. We will cover the physics of space rocks, the sociology of collapse, and the biology of pandemics. By the end of this, you should have a clearer picture of what the world looks like when the guardrails come off, and, more importantly, where you should be standing when they do. And don't worry, I am not here to sell you a bucket of dehydrated mac and cheese. I just want you to be the calmest person in the room when the lights flicker. Let's start with the things that definitely won't happen, so we can stop worrying about them. First up on our tour of doom is the alien invasion. It is the ultimate outside context problem. We have all seen the movies where the saucers park over the White House and blow it up, usually on a holiday weekend. But when we look at the actual probability, the numbers are comforting. Despite decades of scanning the skies with SETI, that is, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we have found exactly 0 confirmed signals. The universe is quiet. This silence is often explained by something called the Great Filter, a theory suggesting that intelligent life tends to wipe itself out before it gets starships. If that is true, the aliens aren't coming because they are already dead. If they aren't dead, they are dealing with the sheer tyranny of distance. Space is incredibly big, and the energy required to move a fleet of conquest ships across the galaxy is astronomical. If a civilization has the tech to travel light years, they probably have the tech to synthesize whatever resources they need at home. They don't need our water, they have plenty of ice in the Oort cloud. They don't need our labour, they have robots. The idea that they would come here just to fight us is projecting human history onto galactic scales. It is a fun story, but structurally it makes no sense. Right next to aliens, in the fun but fake category, is the zombie apocalypse. This is my personal favourite pop culture obsession, but biologically it is a non-starter. The classic undead scenario requires a corpse to walk around without a functioning circulatory system, defying the laws of thermodynamics. Muscles need oxygen and glucose. Without a heartbeat, you don't get shambling hordes, you get motionless piles of decomposing meat. Even if we pivot to the infected style of rage virus, like in those fast zombie movies, we run into logistical hurdles. A disease that makes the host hyper-aggressive and non-cognitive burns itself out fast. Infected people don't drink water, they don't plan ahead, and they walk off cliffs. Evolution generally selects against traits that make you bite your friends and starve to death in a week. While rabies is a terrifying real-world analogue, it doesn't spread fast enough to topple civilization. Rabid animals are dangerous, sure, but they don't organise. The zombie apocalypse is really just a metaphor for social breakdown, which is a real threat we will discuss later. But as for literal monsters eating your neighbours, the probability is effectively zero. You can save your ammo for the target range. Now we move from fiction to theoretical physics. There is a scenario known as Grey Goo, which sounds like a bad cafeteria lunch, but is actually a nanotechnology disaster. The idea is that we create microscopic robots capable of self-replication to consume waste or build products. Then, due to a coding error, they don't stop. They consume all matter on Earth to build more of themselves, leaving behind a lifeless ball of grey sludge. It is a terrifying concept because it is mathematically possible. However, the engineering gap is massive. We are nowhere near building a nanobot that can survive in the wild, source its own energy, and replicate efficiently enough to outpace our ability to smash it with a hammer. Nature actually already invented self-replicating nanobots. We call them bacteria, and we are still here. While it is a risk worth monitoring in high-level labs, it is not something happening next Tuesday. The energy requirements alone make it a distant concern compared to, say, your laptop battery catching fire. Then there are the threats from the cosmos that we have absolutely no control over: gamma-ray bursts and rogue black holes. A gamma-ray burst is essentially a sniper shot from a dying star across the universe. If one hit Earth, it could strip away our ozone layer in seconds, frying everything on the surface with ultraviolet radiation. It is instant, invisible, and undefendable. The good news? These events are incredibly rare in our galaxy, and the beam has to be pointed directly at us, which is like hitting a specific grain of sand from 10 miles away. The odds are astronomically low. Similarly, rogue black holes wandering through the solar system are theoretically possible, but we would see the gravitational chaos long before they arrived. These scenarios are fascinating to read about, but they fall into the category of act of God. There is literally nothing you can do about them. No amount of canned beans saves you from a supernova. So, in the spirit of mental hygiene, we file these under acceptance and move on to problems we can actually manage. Now we are getting into the territory of things that have actually happened and will happen again. Asteroid impacts. The dinosaurs had a very bad day about 66 million years ago because they didn't have a space program. The probability of a civilization-ending rock hitting us in any given year is tiny, 1 in millions. But over a timeline of centuries, it becomes inevitable. The difference between us and the T-Rex is that we are watching the sky. NASA and other agencies track thousands of near-Earth objects. We know where most of the big ones are, and right now, none are on a collision course for the next century. However, smaller rocks, city killers, can still sneak up on us, like the one that exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, in 2013. That wasn't an extinction event, just a lot of broken glass and terrified dashcam owners. The impact of a large asteroid would be physical collapse: dust blocking the sun, crops failing, global cooling. It is a legitimate threat, but it is also the one we are most prepared to detect. You don't need to build a bunker for this, you just need to hope the engineers at NASA keep their coffee pots full. Closer to home, beneath our feet, lies the supervolcano. Places like Yellowstone aren't just nice parks, they are lids on massive pressure cookers of magma. A super eruption happens every few 100,000 years. The last big one, Toba in Indonesia, might have bottlenecked the human population down to a few thousand people. If Yellowstone blew today, it wouldn't just ruin your vacation, It would blanket North America in toxic ash and plunge the world into a volcanic winter for a decade. Agriculture would collapse. That is the real killer, not the lava, but the hunger. The likelihood in any given year is about 1 in 10,000. Low, but not zero. Unlike asteroids, we can't deflect a volcano. We can only monitor the groundswell and earthquake swarms. The preparation for this looks a lot like preparation for any long-term supply chain failure. If you can survive a winter without the grocery store, you are halfway there. But frankly, if the big one hits, geography is destiny. If you are close to the blast zone, your survival plan is simply to be a very interesting fossil. We are leaving the realm of nature now and entering the danger zone of human incompetence. Nuclear war. This was the big fear of the 20th century, and sadly, it never went out of style. There are over 12,000 nuclear warheads in the world. It only takes a tiny fraction of those to end civilization as we know it. The scary part about nuclear war isn't just the malice, it's the mistakes. We have come terrifyingly close to accidental launches due to computer glitches, solar flares, and simple miscommunication. The probability of a nuclear exchange is low in any single year, maybe around 1%. But that risk compounds over time. As tensions rise and more countries get the bomb, the odds get shorter. The impact is immediate: blast waves, firestorms, and then the long, cold, radioactive hangover. Surviving this isn't about fighting mutants in the wasteland. It's about avoiding the fallout plumes and having a water source that doesn't glow. This is a threat that ramps up and down with the nightly news. It is the ultimate high-stakes game of chicken, and we are all sitting in the passenger seat. Let's talk about the new kid on the block: artificial intelligence. This risk is rising sharply. We aren't necessarily talking about Terminator robots with red eyes crushing skulls. The real risk of AI is misaligned goals. Imagine an AI programmed to maximize stock market efficiency that realizes the biggest variable causing volatility is human beings. It doesn't hate us, it just views us as an inefficiency to be optimized away. Or consider an AI that hacks the power grid to divert energy for its own processing. The experts are split on this. Some say it is science fiction. Others say we have a 10% chance of losing control within our lifetimes. The impact would likely be economic and societal collapse rather than a laser war. Our infrastructure is increasingly digital. If the digital brain decides to stop working for us, the lights go out, the banks close, and the trucks stop rolling. It is a quiet apocalypse, defined by the sudden realization that we don't know how to run our own world anymore without the algorithm's help. It is a medium-low probability right now, but the line on the graph is going almost vertical. If nuclear war is the heavy artillery, engineered biology is the sniper. We are living in an age where genetic editing tools like CRISPR are becoming cheaper and easier to use. You can order DNA sequences online. This democratizes science, which is great for curing diseases, but terrifying for security. The risk here is a lab leak on steroids, or worse, a deliberate weapon. Imagine a virus with the lethality of Ebola and the contagiousness of the common cold, engineered in a garage by a bad actor or released by a clumsy researcher. Unlike a nuclear bomb, which requires massive industrial infrastructure, a bioweapon is small, silent, and self-replicating. Once it is out, you can't put it back in the test tube. The likelihood of this is medium and rising every year as the tech gets more accessible. The impact is mass death and the breakdown of civil order. We saw with COVID-19 how fragile our systems are to a relatively mild pandemic. An engineered pathogen could be orders of magnitude worse. This is the scenario that keeps biosecurity experts drinking heavily. It emphasizes that your best survival tool isn't a gun, it's a high-quality respirator and the ability to stay home. Of course, nature is still the original bioterrorist. Natural pandemics are not a matter of if, but when. We just lived through a global dry run, and let's be honest, we got a C- on the report card. Viruses mutate constantly. As we push deeper into wild habitats and factory farm more animals, we create the perfect conditions for zoonosis. That is, when a virus jumps from animals to humans. The likelihood is medium-high. Scientists estimate about a 2% chance every year of a pandemic capable of causing a civilizational crisis. That sounds low until you roll the dice 50 times. The impact is societal breakdown. Hospitals get overrun, supply chains snap because all the truck drivers are sick, and panic buying empties the shelves. We know exactly what this looks like now. The toilet paper shortages were funny in hindsight, but they were a symptom of a brittle system. The next one could be a flu strain or a coronavirus variant that hits harder. The preparation here is simple: hygiene, health, and having a deep pantry so you don't have to fight a crowd for a loaf of bread when the coughing starts. Now we arrive at the heavy hitters, the scenarios that don't require a single villain or a meteor. Systemic collapse. Our civilization is a complex machine with billions of moving parts, all relying on each other. We operate on just-in-time delivery. That grocery store down the street? It is not a warehouse. It is a distribution point with about 3 days of food on the shelves. If the trucks stop, the food runs out. Systemic collapse happens when a stressor, like a cyber attack, a solar flare, or a financial crash, breaks a critical link. The power grid goes down, so the gas pumps don't work. No gas means no trucks. No trucks means no food. No food means civil unrest. It is a cascade of failure. The likelihood of this is medium to high because our systems are becoming more efficient but less resilient. We have traded safety for speed. We are interconnected to a fault. A crisis in one part of the world ripples everywhere. This is the scenario where your neighbour matters more than your gear. If the systems fail, communities that work together survive. Lone wolves just starve alone in a bunker. The trigger could be anything, but the result is a rapid, simplified lifestyle that none of us volunteered for. The scariest part of systemic collapse isn't the machinery failing, it is the human reaction. We rely on the social contract, the agreement that we all follow the rules because the system takes care of us. When the system stops taking care of us, when the water stops running or the police stop answering calls, that contract gets shredded. We saw glimpses of this during recent disasters. Normalcy bias keeps people calm for a few days, but once hunger or fear sets in, things get volatile fast. This is why the probability is ranked so high. It doesn't take an asteroid to break a city. It just takes a week of no power and a lot of rumours. Your preparation for this is about mental flexibility. It is about accepting that the ATM might not work and having a plan B that doesn't involve panic. It is understanding that the most dangerous thing in a collapse isn't a zombie. It is a desperate parent who wasn't ready. Being the person who creates stability rather than chaos is the best survival strategy you can have. And finally, we reach the top of the list. The most likely doomsday scenario is the one that is already happening: climate change and ecological collapse. This isn't a sudden explosion, it is a slow-motion train wreck. We are seeing the baseline shift every year: hotter summers, wetter storms, drier droughts. The danger here is the multiplier effect. Climate change makes every other risk worse. It stresses the power grid, it spreads diseases to new latitudes, it ruins crop yields, which causes political instability. The Pentagon calls it a threat multiplier for a reason. The likelihood is effectively 100% because we are living in it. The question is only about the severity. We are looking at tipping points, ice sheets melting, permafrost releasing methane, that could push the ecosystem into a state that can't support 8 billion people. This is the boring apocalypse. It is not cinematic. It is just expensive, uncomfortable, and gradually lethal. It is seeing the price of coffee triple, then seeing water rationing, then seeing refugees moving north. It is the breakdown of the stable Holocene climate that allowed us to build civilization in the first place. The impact of ecological collapse is profound because there is no safe zone to run to. You can't bunker your way out of a dying atmosphere. By 2035 or 2050, we could see large bands of the equator become virtually uninhabitable due to heat and humidity. That triggers mass migration on a scale history has never seen. When hundreds of millions of people need to move, borders break and conflicts start. This is the ultimate test of humanity. Can we solve a problem that requires global cooperation, or do we fight over the remaining lifeboats? The preparation for this is resilience. It is about localizing your resources, growing some food, collecting rainwater, insulating your home against heat waves. It is about adapting to a harsher world rather than hoping the old one comes back. It is not about doom, it is about reality. The climate doesn't care about our politics or our stock portfolios. It just does physics. And right now, the physics are telling us to brace for impact. So, where does that leave us? If we look at our scoreboard, the results are clear. The things that make for the best movies, aliens, zombies, nanobots, are the things you can safely ignore. They are fun to talk about, but they shouldn't take up any space in your emergency bag. The rare but real events, like asteroids and supervolcanoes, are out of your hands. Monitor them, sure, but don't lose sleep. The human-caused threats, nukes, AI, bioweapons, are growing concerns that demand vigilance and political action, but they are still probability games. But the real heavyweights, the ones you need to plan for today, are the systemic and ecological failures. These are the mundane disasters. The power outage, the food shortage, the heat wave. They are the slockalypse. And here is the twist. Preparing for the boring stuff actually makes you ready for the exciting stuff. If you have a plan for a 3-week power grid failure caused by a storm, you also have a plan for a grid failure caused by a cyber attack or a zombie uprising, however unlikely. The basics of survival, water, food, community, hygiene, are universal. You don't need a specific plan for every monster, you just need a robust life. I want to leave you with this thought. The goal of preparedness isn't to be a hero in a wasteland. The goal is to be boring. You want your crisis to be uneventful. When the panic starts, you want to be the person sitting at home, reading a book by candlelight, eating a warm meal, because you thought ahead. Understanding these probabilities empowers you to stop chasing ghosts and start building resilience. It lets you focus on what matters: your health, your skills, and your neighbours. The world may not end with a bang or a whimper, but with a series of manageable problems that we either solve or succumb to. I choose solving. So, take a look at your life. Are you ready for the supply chain to hiccup? Can you handle a week without the internet? Start there. Leave the alien defense strategy to the Air Force. If you found this reality check useful, do the algorithmic thing. Like, subscribe, ring the bell quietly so you don't attract the zombies. And let me know in the comments, which of these scenarios actually keeps you up at night, and which one do you think is pure fiction? I'm Tom. Stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you on the other side.